So I, 21-year-old female, went to my granddad's 80-year-old male house last week, and he handed me a jar full of cash with my name on it. He told me to count it, and it came to £3,200. I asked him what it was for, and he explained the rules of the game he'd been playing with the whole family. From the 1st of December 2023 to the 31st December 2023, every time a member of the family visited him, he'd put £100 in their jar for every hour they spent with him. At the end of the month, the person who spent the most time with him would receive all of the money in their jar, and the others would get nothing. He obviously didn't tell anybody that he was doing this, so that no one spent extra time with him to get the money. I won his game by £600, so 6 hours more than the person who came second, my uncle. At first, I didn't want to accept the money, only because I didn't think it was right to play games with people without them knowing, especially not your family. But after a while, he convinced me to take my prize money because I earned it. When I got home, I told my parents about the money and explained his game to them. I told my mum where she came on the scoreboard, 4th, and she was understandably upset at her father for making us unknowingly compete with each other. Then she told the rest of the family via a group chat. So now pretty much my whole family is mad at my granddad for doing this, but also me for accepting the money. He is an old man, and he's not exactly a millionaire, so they think that I should have refused the money and confronted him for what he did. I think that if he was willing to play this game, then he obviously has no problem with giving the money away, and he did insist on me taking it. Also, he's always been a weird guy, so although I don't agree with what he did, I'm not too surprised. So, I don't think I should have had to start an argument with him about it. Edit. Sorry, I didn't make it clear enough. This took place between December 1st and December 31st of last year, so only lasting 1 month. Each person who visited him had a separate jar, so my jar had £3,200 in it because I spent 32 hours with him. Other people had different amounts in their jars, but I only received what was in mine. Another edit. Thank you for all of the responses so far. I've seen a lot of comments about how his game was unfair because some people have more free time. That's completely true, although in this case, don't assume that just because I'm young, I have more free time. I have a full-time job, a partner, and a small side business to run. I have significantly less free time than most of my family, apart from maybe my uncle, who works slightly more hours than me. The majority of my family work part-time or not at all, and only my aunt has a young kid to attend to, but she doesn't work either. I'm not saying the game was fair, but I think most of my family would not have trouble finding the spare time to spend with him. Some would just rather be doing anything else. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Objectively, your grandfather has decided to give you money, and that's purely between the two of you. This should be the end of the story. Now, if you want to discuss the gamification aspect of it, here's what I think. Your grandfather has noticed things, or he wouldn't have come up with this game, and to reward certain behaviors without encouraging purely greedy attitudes, he rewards them after the fact. Family members being mad at losing this game and showing animosity, if not jealousy, because you did, comes very close to an embarrassing self-report. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Personally, I think this game just shows which people in the family get along with him better, / feel a certain closeness and understanding with your grandpa, and thus spend time together. Is it a bit rude to put that into monetary value? A bit, but he's free to do what he wants, though I suspect now he'll just get many more visits around Christmas, and he will not give money again next year. Smiley face. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a wild couple of weeks since my last post, and boy, do I have updates for you. After the whole Granddad's game fiasco, things took some unexpected turns. So, after the family group chat exploded with everyone's opinions on the game, my uncle, who came in second, decided to confront Grandad. He's always been the hot-headed one in the family, and he stormed over to Grandad's house demanding an explanation. Turns out, Grandad had a heart-to-heart with him, explaining that his intention was never to cause a rift, but to see who genuinely enjoyed his company. My uncle, surprisingly, calmed down, and they ended up having a beer together. Who would have thought? Meanwhile, my cousin, who's in her late 20s and always been the competitive type, was fuming. She had been so sure she'd win because she's the favourite grandchild. She didn't win, obviously, and she couldn't handle it. She tried to rally the family to boycott Grandad, but it backfired. Most of the family started seeing her true colours, and it wasn't a pretty sight. As for me, I was feeling guilty about the whole situation. I decided to use some of the money to host a family dinner, hoping it would mend some fences. I invited everyone over to my place, and to my surprise, they all showed up. The dinner started off tense, but as the night went on, people began to relax. We shared stories about Grandad, laughed, and even my cousin lightened up a bit. During dinner, my mum pulled me aside. She had been reflecting on her childhood and realized that Grandad had always had a quirky way of teaching lessons. She told me about the time he made her and her siblings build a treehouse by themselves if they wanted one. They learned about hard work and teamwork. It was a touching moment, and it helped me see Grandad's game in a new light. After dinner, we had a family meeting. It was time to clear the air. My aunt, the one with the young kid, admitted she regretted not spending more time with Grandad. She had been so caught up with her own life that she forgot how important family is. That confession hit everyone hard, and one by one, people started sharing their feelings. It was like a dam had burst, and all the pent-up emotions came flooding out. The biggest shock came from my usually quiet teenage brother. He stood up and gave a little speech about how we should appreciate Grandad while we still can. He reminded us that Grandad's odd ways were his form of love. That kid's words moved everyone, even my cousin, who had been sulking in the corner. But wait, there's more. The next day, Grandad called me over. He had been doing some thinking and wanted to make things right. He handed me another jar, this time with £100 in it. He had decided to start a new game. Every month, he would put £100 in a jar, and at the end of the year, the money would go to a family charity event. We would all decide together which cause to support. It was his way of bringing the family together for a good cause, without any secrecy or competition. The family was on board with the idea, and it felt like we were finally moving past the drama. We started planning the charity event, and it was amazing to see everyone working together. My cousin even volunteered to use her marketing skills to promote the event. It was a complete 180 from her previous behaviour. As for the £3,200, I decided to put it towards something special. I used part of it to book a weekend getaway for Grandad. He's always wanted to visit the Scottish Highlands, and I figured it was the perfect way to show my gratitude for all the life lessons he's taught me, intentionally or not. The rest of the money went into a savings account. I'm planning to use it to start a small scholarship fund in Grandad's name for kids in our community who want to learn a trade. It's a nod to the treehouse story my mum shared, and a way to honour Grandad's belief in learning by doing. Sil moves back to town and refuses to call my twin daughters by their names. Oh boy, she won't like what I do next. I, 38-year-old female, am married with 2 children, twins Amy and Nina, 6-year-old females. We live in the same town as most of his families, in the house I inherited from my grandfather. It is the biggest house in the family, so we often host family gatherings. My husband's youngest sister Jane, 31-year-old female, has been travelling for work ever since her early 20s. Mid-2022, she moved in with her fiancé, about half an hour drive away from us. After that, Jane shows up regularly at family gatherings and rebuilds relationships with her family members. The only thing she never bothers to do is address my daughters by their names. Amy and Nina are identical twins. I understand when people refer to them as the twins, but I think it is important that their individuality is respected. I always tell family and friends that now that they are 6 years old, it is important for them to have their own identity, and if possible, please treat them as individuals rather than a pair or a unit. My girls have different interests and hair-dressing styles, so it is not hard to tell them apart. Jane always insists on calling the girls the twins and makes no effort to distinguish them. I asked her many times to treat them as individuals, like her other nieces and nephews, and Jane would say okay and then keep doing the same thing. Last Christmas, Amy made paper cranes and Nina painted flower pictures as their Christmas gifts to everyone in the family. They signed their names and individually handed the gift to everyone. Jane's fiancé had to work this year and did not join us, so after brunch, she video called him in the living room while the rest of us did our things nearby. Her fiancé saw the crane in her hand and asked where she got it, and Jane said, "Oh, one of the twins gave it to me for Christmas. The other twin drew some flowers." I felt that this was a disrespect, as my girls put a lot of effort into the gifts and deserved to have their private dedication recognized. When everyone left, I told Jane I expected her to call my girls Amy and Nina from now on and to treat them like individuals and know their differences. Jane said that she won't bother as my girls are too young, so I told her she is banned from my house until she learns how to address my girls by their names. Jane just stomped off. My husband agreed with me on this. A few days ago, my mother-in-law called to plan my husband's birthday in early February. I told her we could have the party at my house like usual, but Jane would not be invited. My mother-in-law was alarmed and asked why, and when she learned of what happened, she was mad at Jane. Jane called me a few hours ago, calling me an AH for making a big deal out of something insignificant. She said my girls would be known as the twins, whether I like it or not, and once they get older, people will recognize them as individuals, but not now when they're young and just another couple of girls. She said she deserves to be with her family for her brother's birthday, and I need to let it go. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. As the mother of identical twin girls, who are now adults, I was very intentional about clearly treating them as individuals while still enjoying the uniqueness of being twins. Creating an environment where they are treated as two separate humans, not a unit, is incredibly important. They have commented more than once how much they appreciated this growing up. Stick to your guns on this. Comment 2. Not the idiot. This isn't a case of accidental slip-ups. She is actively choosing not to learn the difference between them because it's too much effort. Yet she bothers for other kids? Yeah, no idiots here. Your husband's sister can deal with the consequences of her own behavior. I also second only referring to her as your husband's sister from now on. If your kids aren't worthy of a name, neither is she. Now, for the update. Hey everyone. A lot has happened since my last post about my sister-in-law Jane and her refusal to address my twin daughters, Amy and Nina, by their names. I wanted to give you all an update on the situation. After the whole Christmas gift incident, things were pretty tense between Jane and me. My husband's birthday was coming up, and I had already told my mother-in-law that Jane wouldn't be invited to the party at our house. My mother-in-law, who's always been the peacemaker in the family, tried to smooth things over. She had a long talk with Jane, explaining how important it was to recognize Amy and Nina as individuals. Jane didn't take it well at first. She was stubborn, saying that she didn't see the point in changing her ways. But my mother-in-law didn't give up. She shared stories from when my husband and his siblings were young, emphasizing how they each had their unique quirks and interests that she cherished. She told Jane that just like them, Amy and Nina deserved the same recognition. Meanwhile, the girls were busy with their new hobbies. Amy had taken up ballet, and Nina was in a soccer league. They were thriving, and their distinct personalities were shining brighter than ever. It was during one of Nina's soccer games that Jane showed up, unannounced. She watched from the sidelines, and to my surprise, she cheered for Nina by name every time she touched the ball. After the game, Jane approached me. She admitted that she had been wrong and that seeing Nina in her element made her realize how different the girls were. She apologized to both Amy and Nina, and they, being the sweethearts they are, forgave her without hesitation. Things started to change after that. Jane made an effort to spend one-on-one time with each girl. She took Amy to a ballet performance, and they both came back chatting excitedly about the dancers. Another day, she joined Nina for a soccer practice and even kicked the ball around with her. As my husband's birthday drew closer, the atmosphere in the family was much lighter. Jane had shown that she was making a genuine effort to mend fences, and it was clear that she had grown fond of the girls as individuals. The day of the party arrived, and our house was buzzing with excitement. Jane was there, of course, and she brought 2 separate gifts for Amy and Nina. She had remembered that Amy loved art, so she got her a set of watercolors. For Nina, she found a soccer ball signed by a player from her favorite team. The party was a hit. Everyone enjoyed themselves, and Jane was the life of the party, making sure to engage with all her nieces and nephews by name. My husband was over the moon, not just because of the celebration, but because his family was getting along so well. As the evening wound down, Jane pulled me aside. She thanked me for standing my ground and making her see the error of her ways. She admitted that she had been so caught up in her own life that she hadn't taken the time to really get to know Amy and Nina. She promised it wouldn't happen again. Since then, Jane has become one of the girls' favorite aunts. She's always suggesting new activities for them to try, and she's even started a tradition of taking them out for ice cream every other Saturday. The girls love it, and they always come back with stories about their adventures with Aunt Jane. Looking back, I'm glad I stood up for my daughters. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I doubted whether I was doing the right thing. But seeing the bond that has formed between Jane and the girls, I know it was worth it. They're happy, and that's all that matters to me. I bought a $700 cashmere wool coat on clearance for $100 and lent it to my fiancé's brother for a wedding, but he loses it and offers $100 as compensation, but I demand a replacement coat or the current cost. Oh boy. Last year, I was at the mall with my fiancé when I saw this awesome cashmere wool coat. It was perfect in every way, and there was only one left in my size. The best news was that it was on clearance for $100, so I bought it without a second thought. I have worn it several times last year, but it hasn't been cold enough this year for me to break out the coat. Last week, when I saw the news about the upcoming cold front, I decided it was time to take it to the dry cleaners so that I can wear it this week. After tearing all my closets apart without seeing it, I asked my fiancée if she had seen it. She told me that she hasn't seen me wear it in a while, so she lent it to her brother to wear to a wedding. I was annoyed at hearing this, but decided not to make a big deal, so I simply told her to tell her brother to bring it back so I could get it dry cleaned. Thursday rolls around and he hasn't brought it back, so I asked her about it again. Nothing. Come Friday, and I haven't heard anything, so I called him. He said that he told my wife on Tuesday that he got drunk at the wedding and lost my coat. I was super annoyed at this, so I told him he owes that exact coat from that exact brand. Last night, my fiancée came home from work in a mood and handed me $100. She said that her brother dropped off the money, and I shouldn't have made her brother pay for the coat since I knew he doesn't make very much, and I haven't worn it but a handful of times. I looked at the $100 and told her I wanted a replacement coat, or the amount it currently cost, so that I can buy a new one, and that $100 won't cover it. She said he went to the store, and it cost $700 now, but she knew I only paid $100 for it, so she told him $100 would cover the cost. I argued that $100 doesn't buy me a new coat. We went back and forth but couldn't find any common ground. She offered to throw in an extra $100 of her own money and said sarcastically that I'm coming out ahead. I argued that I'm still out a coat and nothing will satisfy my loss except for a replacement coat. She argued that I don't have to have the exact coat and that I can buy a similar one with $200. She thought I was being ridiculous and called her parents on speakerphone. Of course, they sided with their children, and her dad tried to say that a man shouldn't be so hung up on a coat. I told him that a man replaces what he loses, so now they're all mad at me for wanting to make a profit from their son and intimating that he's not a man. Am I wrong for wanting the same coat as a replacement? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. She didn't hand her brother $100, she handed him a coat. He didn't need $100 for the wedding. He needed a coat. I do a lot of bargain hunting and thrifting. I buy things for a low cost that have a higher value, because I invest time and expertise into knowing what to buy. In this case, your financial investment was $100, but you also were in the right place at the right time to find a coat at a deep discount. You stored it and kept it in good condition. You had enough knowledge to see the value in it, a value that your brother-in-law appreciated because he decided that it was nice enough to wear to a wedding. When your brother-in-law took the coat, he valued it at more than $700. They owe you a similar coat. Now, if he can find one for $100 sure, and it needs to be the same materials and quality as the one he lost, that is work he needs to put in, not you. You are dumping the girlfriend, right? Comment 2. I think it's fair for the brother-in-law to pay $100. The fiancé, however, owes the other $600. Yes, brother-in-law lost it like a doofus, but the fiancé lent it out without permission to someone she probably knew was not going to be responsible. I would never loan something out that belonged to someone else without talking to them first, even if it was $7. Reconsider this relationship, given how she sees no issue with stealing from you, being generally disrespectful, gaslighting you. Oh, it's not that bad. Get over it. And bringing her parents into your relationship where they don't belong. This is your future with every single future disagreement. ETA, not the idiot. Now, for the update. So it's been a week since the whole coat fiasco, and let me tell you, things have gone from bad to worse. I thought the situation couldn't get any more heated, but boy was I wrong. After the last update, my fiancé and I had a huge fight. She was still mad about the whole coat situation, and her family wasn't making things any easier. Her dad kept calling, trying to smooth things over, but it was clear he was just trying to get me to drop it. I wasn't about to let this go, though. That coat wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was the first thing I bought after getting a big promotion at work. It symbolized a lot to me, and they just didn't get that. The next day, my fiancé's brother finally called me. He apologized for losing the coat and said he'd been feeling guilty about it. He admitted he didn't just lose it, he actually spilled wine on it at the wedding and then left it behind because he was too embarrassed to tell anyone. I couldn't believe it. Not only had he lost my coat, but he'd also lied about it. I was furious, but I tried to keep my cool. I told him I appreciated his honesty, but I still wanted a replacement. Things got even more complicated when my fiancé's best friend, who had been at the wedding, told me she saw the brother giving my coat to some girl he'd been flirting with all night. I confronted him about it, and after some back and forth, he finally confessed. He said he was trying to impress the girl and thought he could just get the coat back from her later. But when he tried, she ghosted him. Classic. My fiancée was shocked. She couldn't believe her brother would do something like that. She apologized to me and said she understood why I was so upset. She even offered to help pay for a new coat, but I told her it wasn't about the money. It was about the principle of the thing. We tried to track down the girl, but it was like she'd disappeared off the face of the earth. No one knew her name or where she was from. It was like she'd just come to the wedding to cause trouble and then vanished. In the midst of all this, my fiancé and I were having our own problems. The stress of the situation was taking a toll on our relationship. We were arguing all the time, and it felt like we were drifting apart. I started to wonder if we were really right for each other. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get any more dramatic, my fiancé dropped a bombshell. She told me she'd been feeling neglected ever since I got that promotion and started working longer hours. She said she felt like I cared more about my job and my possessions than I did about her. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I hadn't realized how much I'd been neglecting her. I was so focused on my own success and my material things that I'd forgotten what was really important. We had a long, emotional talk, and we both cried. It was clear that we had a lot of issues to work through if we were going to make this relationship work. We decided to go to couples counseling to try to sort things out. As for the coat, well, it's still missing. But after everything that's happened, it doesn't seem as important anymore. Sure, I'm still annoyed about it, but I've realized that there are more important things in life than a piece of clothing, no matter how much it cost or what it symbolized. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!